The skies above Earth darkened as the massive ships of the Galactic Conclave positioned themselves in orbit. People across the planet watched their screens with a mixture of fear and awe. Humanity had only recently discovered they were not alone in the universe. Now the representatives of 1,000 alien civilizations had come to judge them. Commander Tay stood at the window of United Earth headquarters, his weathered face reflecting in the glass. Behind him, military and political leaders waited in tense silence for news from their delegation. "They're returning," announced a young officer, breaking the silence. The Earth representatives entered the chamber, their expressions telling the story before they spoke a word. Admiral Kim, leader of the delegation, placed her tablet on the central table with a defeated gesture. "The Conclave has reached its decision," she said. "They've classified humanity as evolutionarily unpredictable and a potential threat to galactic stability." President June rose from her seat. "What exactly does that mean for us?" "It means we're quarantined," Kim replied. "The Conclave is establishing a blockade around our entire solar system. No human ships will be permitted to leave. We're confined to our cosmic neighborhood, permanently." Tay turned from the window. "They can't just imprison an entire species. What right do they have?" "The right of 1,000 worlds united against one," Kim said. "They outnumber us in ships and technology by margins we can't even calculate." Over the next weeks, humans watched as the blockade took shape. Massive ships positioned themselves at strategic points throughout the solar system. Strange devices were deployed that could detect and disable any vessel attempting to breach the quarantine zone. Humanity refused to accept their cage without a fight. Ships were launched to test the blockade's weaknesses. Each mission ended in failure. Some vessels were simply turned back. Others were disabled and towed home. The most aggressive attempts resulted in destruction. The final mission, led by Admiral Song aboard the flagship Defiance, made the deepest push yet into the blockade. Millions watched the live feed as the ship deployed experimental countermeasures against the alien technology. For a brief moment it seemed they might succeed, then the feed went dark. The Defiance and its crew of 300 were gone. That night, riots broke out in cities across Earth. People demanded action, vengeance, or surrender. No one could agree. The global economy began to crumble as the reality of isolation sank. Humanity had just begun to establish mining operations on distant asteroids and moons. Now those resources were cut off by the blockade. Commander Tay found Admiral Kim in her office, surrounded by reports and simulations. "We can't win a direct confrontation," she said without looking up. "But there may be another way." The plan formed quickly. If humanity couldn't defeat the blockade, they would leave the solar system entirely. Not just a few ships or colonies, but a mass exodus. They would slip through the gaps in the blockade, traveling to stars so distant the Conclave had never bothered to claim them. "We face an impossible choice," President June told the world in her historic address. "Submit to eternal confinement, or attempt a breakout that could end in our extinction. But humanity chooses a third path. We will leave our cradle behind and venture into the unknown stars beyond the Conclave's reach." The construction of the Exodus fleet became humanity's greatest project. Every resource was dedicated to building ships that could sustain life for generations if necessary. The plan required sacrifices. Not everyone could go. Lotteries determined who would leave and who would stay. Chief Scientist Hana led the team, creating the Exodus Archive, a database containing all human knowledge, art, and history. "We will remember who we are," she told her team, "no matter how far we travel or how long we wander." On the day of departure, Commander Tay watched from the command deck as the Exodus fleet prepared to scatter in all directions. Their only hope was that the blockade couldn't cover every possible escape vector simultaneously. "They cast us out because they feared what we might become," Admiral Kim said, standing beside him. "They never considered what we would become because of their fear." As the first ships activated their engines and disappeared into the darkness, no one knew if any would succeed in escaping. Those left behind cheered nonetheless, their faces lit by the glow of departing engines. Humanity had been judged and found threatening by the galaxy's oldest civilizations. cast out and contained like a dangerous disease. But in forcing humans to flee, the Conclave had scattered the very seeds they feared across the stars, and someday those seeds would grow. The Exodus ships scattered like dandelion seeds blown across the cosmos. Of the 100 vessels that attempted to breach the Conclave blockade, only 27 made it through. Each ship carried 10,000 humans frozen in sleep, along with the genetic material for future generations. They traveled in different directions, seeking stars far from Conclave territory. The colony ship Hope drifted for 30 years before reaching its destination, a frozen world orbiting a dim red star. Dr. Jun woke from hibernation with the first group of colonists, his breath-forming clouds in the ship's cold air. "This is it?" asked one of the engineers, looking at the ice planet through the viewports. "This is our new home?" "The Conclave avoids worlds like this," Jun explained. "Too harsh for their biology. But we can adapt." They named the world Sanctuary. The first shelters were carved directly into the ice. Temperatures rarely rose above freezing, even during the brief summer. Many colonists died that first year, their bodies preserved in the permafrost outside the settlement. Dr. Jun worked tirelessly in his laboratory. The colony had brought advanced technology, including genetic modification equipment and nanomachines. Jun believed humans could be adapted to survive in this hostile environment. "The procedure is ready," he told the Colony Council after 3 years of research. "But I cannot guarantee success." 20 volunteers underwent the first round of modifications. 15 survived. Their bodies changed, skin thickening, blood chemistry altering, metabolism shifting to generate more internal heat. Within a generation, the modified humans could walk on the surface without protective gear, immune to cold that would kill their ancestors in minutes. Across the void, another colony took root on a different type of world. The ship Forge found a planet orbiting too close to its star, with surface temperatures high enough to melt lead. Commander Park chose this hellish world precisely because no other species would want it. The colonists burrowed underground, using the planet's extreme geology to their advantage. Volcanic vents provided endless energy. The constant threat forced innovation. Within decades, they had created technologies that could extract metals directly from magma flows. The children born on Forge grew up in a society focused on one goal: preparation for humanity's eventual return. Commander Park established the first military academy, training soldiers who had never seen Earth to fight for its reclamation. "They cast us out expecting us to perish," she told each class of recruits. "We will return to show them their mistake." The isolated colonies needed a way to stay connected. On the Waterworld Haven, Engineer Min worked with his team to develop quantum communicators that could instantaneously transmit messages across any distance. When they succeeded, the scattered remnants of humanity could finally coordinate. The colony leaders formed the Reclamation Council, meeting through quantum projections that made it seem as if they sat around a single table despite being separated by hundreds of light years. "We need more than just survival," said Dr. Jun during the first council. "We need advancement beyond anything the Conclave can imagine." For decades, the colonies developed in isolation, each adapting to their unique environments. Humans changed, both culturally and physically. The ice dwellers of Sanctuary became pale and resilient. The underground civilization of Forge produced generations with natural heat resistance and eyes adapted to dim light. On the furthest colony, a world named Horizon for its strange, perpetually setting sun, something unexpected happened. Miners digging into an ancient mountain range discovered a structure that clearly wasn't natural. Director Bay ordered a full excavation. What they found was unlike any technology created by humans or the Conclave. A spherical device half buried in rock, covered in symbols no one recognized. "It predates the Conclave," Bay reported to the Reclamation Council. "This artifact comes from a civilization even older." The research team worked carefully to understand the device. When they finally activated it, a holographic display filled the chamber, showing star maps and technical schematics beyond human understanding. "This changes everything," Director Bay told the Council. "If we can decipher this technology, we'll have capabilities the Conclave has never seen." Across all the colonies, word spread of the discovery. For the first time since the exile, people felt more than just determination. They felt hope. The ancient artifact might provide the edge humanity needed against the vastly more numerous conclave species. As the colonies entered their second century of exile, scattered humanity had become something new. No longer a single species with her shared culture, but diverse branches of human evolution, each with unique strengths. They communicated across the void, shared discoveries, and prepared. The conclave had cast them out, believing they were containing a threat. They didn't realize they were creating one instead, a humanity forged in the harshest environments, driven by the memory of injustice, and now armed with technology from before the conclave itself existed. The diaspora continued, but now with purpose and direction. Humanity wasn't just surviving in exile, they were preparing to return. 200 years passed since humanity's exile from the solar system. The scattered colonies had grown and changed in ways their ancestors could never have imagined. What began as desperate outposts fighting for survival had evolved into unique civilizations. On the orbital station Vengeance, constructed in the shadow of a gas giant, General Hyun walked through the training facility. Below her, in a massive chamber, soldiers moved through combat exercises. Their movements were too fast for unmodified human eyes to follow. "The new batch is impressive," said her aide, walking beside her. Hyun nodded. "Fifth-generation enhancements. Their reaction time is triple that of the original colonists. Through carefully controlled genetic modification, humans had developed beyond their original limitations. Stronger muscles, denser bones, enhanced senses, and neural processing that made them think and react faster than any known conclave species." "Any side effects?" Hyun asked. "Nothing significant. The earlier problems have been solved." The first generations of enhanced soldiers had suffered from shortened lifespans and psychological instability. Now those issues were gone. What remained were humans who could outfight any enemy they might face. Across the vast distances between colonies, the quantum communication network kept humanity connected. Chief Engineer Day's face appeared as a hologram in the Reclamation Council chamber. "The Phantom drive tests were successful," he reported to the assembled leaders. "Our ships can now travel undetected through conclave space." This breakthrough had come from studying the ancient artifact found on Horizon. The technology allowed ships to partially shift into another dimension, becoming almost invisible to standard detection methods. "How many vessels have been equipped?" asked Director Bay, now an old woman but still leading the research efforts. 50 so far," Day replied. "Production is accelerating. We'll have a fleet of 300 within the year." In a separate facility, orbiting the Iceworld Sanctuary, Intelligence Director Lee reviewed the information gathered by human scout ships. The Phantom drive had allowed them to penetrate deep into conclave territory undetected. "The conclave has fractured," she told her analysts. "What was once a unified government has split into 3 major powers, with dozens of smaller factions emerging." The holographic display showed the current political boundaries of conclave space. Civil wars had erupted over resources and ideology. Species that once stood united against humanity now fought each other. "They've grown complacent," Lee continued. "Their technology has barely advanced in 2 centuries. They believe they solved the human problem long ago." Captain Sue had led many of the scout missions into conclave territory. Her ship, the Shadow, was the first to be equipped with the Phantom drive. They had mapped patrol routes, defensive installations and communication networks across dozens of star systems. "The most interesting finding," she reported to the Council, "is how they speak of humans in their historical records. We're a cautionary tale, a potential threat that was successfully contained. Some younger species in the conclave don't even believe we were real." The Reclamation Council convened in full for the first time in decades. Leaders from all 7 major colonies attended in person rather than by hologram, signaling the importance of the meeting. Fleet Admiral Du, descendant of the original Exodus captain, presented the plan that had been generations in the making. "Operation Homecoming consists of 3 phases," he explained, the star map highlighting key targets. "First, infiltration and sabotage of their primary defense systems. Second, simultaneous strikes against their major military installations. Third, a push toward Earth and the solar system. The council chamber fell silent as everyone considered the enormity of what they were proposing. After 2 centuries of preparation, they were about to challenge the combined might of the galaxy's oldest civilizations. There will be no element of surprise after the first phase, Admiral Doe continued. We must be prepared for full-scale war against numerically superior forces. An older council member raised his hand. Are we certain this is the right path? Many of us have never even seen Earth. We've built new homes here. Admiral Doe nodded respectfully. We don't fight only for Earth. We fight because the Conclave claimed the right to judge which species may travel among the stars. As long as that judgment stands, humanity will never be truly free. The vote was taken. Operation Homecoming was approved unanimously. As the council adjourned, Fleet Admiral Doe looked out at the stars visible through the chamber's dome. Somewhere out there was Earth, the homeworld none of them had ever seen, but all had sworn to reclaim. The humans who had been cast out were gone. In their place stood a new humanity, enhanced, technologically superior, and united by generations of shared purpose. The Conclave had created its own worst nightmare by forcing humans to evolve in isolation, driven by the memory of injustice. Send the signal, Admiral Doe ordered. All ships, all colonies, Operation Homecoming begins now. Across the void between stars, the descendants of Earth prepared to return, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as the very threat the Conclave had feared they might become. The stealth ship Phantom slipped through Conclave space like a ghost. Its modified hull absorbed sensor sweeps, and its phantom drive kept it partially shifted into another dimension. To the Conclave monitoring stations, it was invisible. Commander Q stood on the bridge, watching the massive defense installation floating in space before them. This station had been the first to detect Earth 2 centuries ago, beginning the chain of events that led to humanity's exile. All teams in position, reported his tactical officer. Q nodded. Begin the operation. Across Cenorian space, the territory of the Empire that had been most vocal in demanding humanity's exile, similar scenes played out. Human stealth teams infiltrated defense networks, communication hubs, and sensor arrays. They didn't destroy these installations, they simply altered them. Final system compromised, reported a technician as the last firewall fell. We have complete access to their network. Commander Q allowed himself a small smile. Upload the program. The virus spread through the Cenorian defense grid, subtle and undetected. It didn't shut anything down. Instead, it modified the systems to ignore specific energy signatures, the signatures of human ships. In the Cenorian High Command, confusion reigned as system after system reported glitches and anomalies. It must be a technical malfunction, insisted the chief engineer. Run a diagnostic. We've run 3 diagnostics, replied his assistant. The systems show no errors, but the readings don't make sense. The truth wouldn't become clear until it was too late. Across Conclave space, similar operations unfolded. Human infiltrators had spent years preparing the battlefield. Some had even undergone extensive modification to pass as members of Conclave species, gathering intelligence from within. On the command carrier Defiance, named after the ship destroyed, in the last attempt to break the Earth blockade, Admiral Jin reviewed the reports from the infiltration teams. All primary targets secured, he announced to his officers. Phase 1 complete. Jin was the grandson of the legendary Admiral Song, who had died trying to break through the blockade. He had grown up on stories of Earth and the injustice done to humanity. Now he would lead the first true strike against the Conclave. All ships, prepare for Phase 2, he ordered. Target coordinates locked, phantom drives engaged. Throughout Conclave space, human battleships appeared simultaneously near key military installations. The Phantom fleet emerged from nowhere, their weapons already firing before the defenders even registered their presence. At the original Conclave outpost that had detected Earth, Admiral Jin's flagship materialized directly in front of the command station. Open a channel, Jin ordered. The confused face of the station commander appeared on screen. The alien's four eyes widened in shock as it recognized the human before it. "This is Admiral Jin of the Human Reclamation Fleet," Jin stated calmly. "Your defense systems have been compromised. Your communications are blocked. You have one chance to surrender." Across 50 star systems, similar messages were delivered. Some conclave commanders fought. Others, seeing the technological superiority of the human vessels, surrendered immediately. Reports of the simultaneous attacks caused panic throughout the conclave. Species that had lived in peace for millennia suddenly faced an enemy they thought they had contained long ago. "Impossible," gasped the conclave supreme commander, as the tactical display showed human ships appearing and disappearing at will during battles. How could they have advanced so far? The humans revealed technologies that left the conclave scientists stunned, ships with adaptive hulls that could repair themselves, weapons that phased through standard shields, soldiers who could operate in environments that would kill any conclave species. Most shocking was the diversity of humanity itself. The descendants of Earth had adapted to their exile worlds in ways no one could have predicted. Some human soldiers stood 7 feet tall with reinforced bones and muscles. Others had skin that could withstand extreme temperatures or eyes that could see beyond normal spectrums. As the human fleet advanced, something unexpected happened. Many former conclave members, particularly newer species who had joined after humanity's exile, began to surrender without fighting. Some even defected, impressed by humanity's resilience and adaptability. "We've heard stories of human ingenuity," said the Tellarite ambassador in a broadcast that spread across conclave space. "We believed they were exaggerations. We were wrong, Admiral." Jin stood on his bridge as another conclave defense fleet scattered before his advance. The path to Earth, to the home his ancestors had been forced to abandon, lay open before him. "Set course for the Sol system," he ordered. "It's time to go home." The human fleet moved toward Earth with unstoppable momentum. The conclave, fractured by internal disputes and technological inferiority, could not mount an effective defense. Species that had once stood united in fear of humanity now faced the very threat they had created through their actions. After 2 centuries of preparation, humanity had returned to reclaim their place among the stars, not as supplicants begging for acceptance, but as conquerors who would dictate the terms of a new galactic order. The final confrontation took place at Nexus Prime, the capital world of the Galactic Conclave. After months of lightning strikes and strategic victories, the human forces had pushed to the very heart of the civilization that had exiled them centuries ago. Fleet Admiral Wu stood on the bridge of the Reclamation, the largest human warship ever built. Through the viewports, she could see the planet below, a gleaming world of towering spires and artificial continents, home to the Conclave Supreme Council. "They've assembled their defense fleet," reported her tactical officer. 7,000 ships, including representatives from every major conclave species. Wu studied the tactical display. The enemy vessels formed traditional battle formations, arranged by size and weapon capability, exactly as their military doctrines prescribed. "They still think in terms of conventional warfare," she noted. "That will be their final mistake." The Zhao human fleet was smaller, just under 2,000 ships, but each vessel carried technology derived from both human innovation and the ancient artifact discovered decades ago. Their phantom drives allowed them to partially phase between dimensions. Their adaptive hulls could reconfigure to resist different types of attacks. Their weapons could penetrate shields designed to stop conventional energy. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said her communications officer. Wu nodded. "Begin the attack pattern. Remember our objective. We want surrender, not extinction." The human ships moved forward, but not in any formation the conclave defenders recognized. Instead of a unified front, the fleet split into hundreds of small groups, each acting independently. When the conclave adapted to counter one group's tactics, the others would immediately shift to different approaches. Traditional military doctrine collapsed in the face of human unpredictability, the very trait the conclave had feared centuries ago. In the conclave command center, panic spread as reports flooded in. Human ships appeared and disappeared at will. Weapons failed against their adaptive defenses. Communication systems were hacked and filled with confusing orders. "Impossible," gasped the Supreme Commander. "How could they have advanced so far beyond us?" On the surface of Nexus Prime, something unexpected happened. Several Conclave member species lowered their planetary shields and declared neutrality. The Tellarites, a species that had joined the Conclave after humanity's exile, sent a message directly to the human fleet. "We were wrong about humans," announced their ambassador. "Their exile didn't weaken them. It forged them into something greater. We choose to stand with them." Other species followed. The unified Conclave defense began to crumble from within as ancient alliances collapsed. Some fought because they had no choice, others because they feared human vengeance. But a growing number recognized that a new power had emerged in the galaxy. Admiral Jin, grandson of the admiral who had led the first strike against the Conclave outpost, led the ground forces that landed on Nexus Prime. His team secured the governmental district with minimal casualties. The Conclave guards who surrendered were treated with respect, a fact that spread quickly through enemy communications. In the Great Hall of the Conclave Supreme Council, Admiral Jin faced the representatives of the civilization that had cast humanity out. "You exiled us, expecting us to die among the stars," he said, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "Instead, we returned stronger. Now you face a choice: peaceful coexistence or continued conflict." The Supreme Counselor, an ancient being from one of the galaxy's oldest species, studied the human admiral. "We feared what humanity might become," the counselor admitted. "It seems our fear was justified." "No," Jin replied. "You created what you feared through your actions. The humans who left Earth sought only to join the galactic community. The humans who returned today were forged by exile and injustice. After hours of negotiation, the Conclave surrendered. They acknowledged humanity's right to exist within the galactic community and lifted the blockade around Earth's solar system. As human ships approached Earth for the first time in centuries, many aboard wept at the sight of the blue planet. Though none of them had been born there, all had grown up with stories of the homeworld. President Choi, elected by the combined colonies, addressed the representatives of both humanity and the former Conclave members on reclaimed Earth. She stood where the original Conclave delegation had delivered their verdict of exile centuries before. "We were cast out as a threat," she said, her voice carried to every human settlement across the stars. "We return not as conquerors, but as teachers. The galaxy's greatest threat was never humanity. It was fear of the unknown, fear of difference. That is the enemy we have truly defeated today. The galaxy entered a new era. The Conclave was reformed into an alliance of equals, with humanity taking its place among the stars. Earth became the center of a new interstellar community based on the principle that had saved humanity in exile. Adaptation and change were not to be feared, but embraced. The children of the diaspora had returned home, and the stars would never be the same."